Hey y'all. So we're gonna go ahead and jump right into Hebrews chapter 10. We're gonna start with the chapter context. Let me make this bigger because y'all know I can't see for real. So chapter 10 completes the long detailed explanation of why the new covenant is superior to the old covenant. Starting in chapter 7, the writer gave various arguments and scriptures to support this idea. The theme of these points is that God had always intended to send Jesus as the real fulfillment of the old covenant's symbolism. The second half of this chapter transitions into more practical ideas, including an extremely dire warning about the dangers of apostasy. I hope I'm saying it right, apostasy. Okay, let's get into the breakdown part 1. Hebrews chapter 10 marks the end of the writer's primary argument and begins a transition into the practical applications. For several chapters, the book of Hebrews has provided evidence that the new covenant in Jesus Christ is superior to the old covenant of animal sacrifices. The writer has also carefully pointed out that God always intended to replace the temple sacrifices. Those were meant to be symbolic of true solution for our sins, which is Jesus. The first half of chapter 10 completes this long and intricate argument in Hebrews 10 1 through 18. The writer offers a final point of logic as well as another reference to the Old Testament. The quotation Psalms 4 6 through 8 from the what? Septuagint, a Greek translation of the Old Testament completed about 200 years before the birth of Christ. It's Greek, no wonder. I was about to say something, but let me keep going. The book of Hebrews uses this passage to show that God's intent was for his will to be completed through a body, specifically in contrast to doing so through sacrifices. Logically, the writer also reminds us that repeating a sacrifice is evidence that the ritual could not take away sins. If the offerings of the Old Covenant could actually remove the penalty of our sins, there would be no need to offer them again and again. Instead, they had to be repeated. This is good. Y'all catching this? This is so good. According to the writer of Hebrews, this points us to the real purpose of the Old Covenant, a reminder of sin, not a removal of it. God's intent in setting up the Old Covenant was to symbolize the upcoming New Covenant. This also supports the fact that Jesus' sacrifice was a perfect once-for-all event. Once the ultimate solution had been offered, there is no reason to bring the same sacrifice over again. The second half of the chapter begins in verse 19 and transitions into application, Hebrews 10, 19 through 39. The overall theme of this letter is confidence in our faith, leading us to hold fast in the face of adversity. The shifting topic, however, comes with the most strongly worded warning given in the book of Hebrews. Earlier, the writer warned about the dangers of careless faith, Hebrews 2 1 through 4, fearful disobedience, Hebrews 3 12 through 19, and drifting from the truth due to spiritual apathy, Hebrews 6 1 through 8. Here, the danger is presented in a graphic, dire terms. The phrasing of this section leads itself to two possible interpretations, both of which are consistent with the rest of the book of Hebrews in the New Testament. This is either a caution given to saved Christians about the conscience of their sins, or a warning to those who are almost saved but choose to reject Christ in favor of their life of sin. The context of this chapter in the book of Hebrews makes the former interpretation far more likely. Sin has consequences. Whether it is deliberate or not, Hebrews 2:2. However, those who should know better are held more accountable by God. Oh my God. John 9:41. This means that those who are saved, those who know firsthand what it means to be forgiven, who choose to sin, can expect a far harsher punishment as a result. Oh, Jesus. Since deliberate sin against the old covenant was punishment by death, Numbers 15:27 through 31, it's reasonable to assume that those who profane a greater covenant are subject to a greater consequence. Baby, you couldn't pay me to sin willingly. I'm not going to hell for nobody. At the same time, the writer seeks to encourage his readers. These persecuted Jewish Christians have survived hardship and trials in the past. They can do so again. Hebrews 10:32 through 39. The following chapters will continue to explore the implications of our confident faith in the new covenant. So let's go ahead and break down part 2. Oh, I was wondering why I did. Okay, I found out my laptop can do something new, and I'm like, what is going on? Okay, so part 2, Hebrews 10 explains the superiority of Jesus Christ's sacrifice over the old system of animal sacrifices, establishing a new covenant that allows for direct access to God through faith. The chapter contrasts the temporary repeated animal sacrifices with Jesus' one-time perfect sacrifice for the sins of all people, urging believers to live in this newfound access with sincerity and to persevere in their faith. It also contains a warning against apostasy or abandoning their faith after accepting Jesus Christ. So let's break this down a little bit more. Jesus' sacrifice is superior to animal sacrifices. 3 points. Gotta hurt my baby. Insufficient old covenant. The law and its repeated animal sacrifices were a shadow, not the perfect reality, and cannot truly take away sins or make people perfect. Number 2, the perfect sacrifice. Jesus' sacrifice was the ultimate offering, a once for all event that paid the price for sin and brought about a new covenant prophesied in the Old Testament. Number 3, a willing sacrifice. Jesus willingly offered his life as a sacrifice that was of infinite value, unlike the animal sacrifices that could not consent. Excuse me. Okay, so section 2, the new covenant and its implications. 3 points. Direct access to God. Jesus' sacrifice tore the veil, allowing believers direct and confidence in access to God's presence, a privilege no longer limited by the old temple system. Number 2, forgiveness of sins. The new covenant brings complete forgiveness and God's promises to remember sin no more. Number 3, God's law on hearts. The new covenant involves God's writing his law on the hearts and minds of believers. Okay, and then the last and final section, 3 points, a call to action and a warning. Number 1, approach with faith. Christians are called to approach God with sincerity, full assurance, and faith. Number 2, encourage one another. The passage encourages believers to stir up one another up to love and good deeds and not to give up meeting together. I hear you, God. And then number 3, warning against apostasy. Apostasy. I don't know. It includes a severe warning against falling away from the faith, which is compared to trampling on the Son of God and holding his sacrifice as unholy. That's deep. All right, y'all. That is all I have for the full breakdown of Hebrews chapter 10. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.